Okay, let's go now to the mayoral campaign trail. Ana Bailao speaking live to talk about housing.
And thank you to all of you for joining us here today. I am running to make life better and more affordable by fixing services and building homes. In the last month, I have spoken with neighbors in Scarborough, in North York, in Etobicoke, and across the city, and I'm hearing a lot of similar concerns. We are facing many crises: a housing crisis, a homelessness crisis, an opioid crisis, an affordability crisis. We have people sleeping on the subway and in the stairwells of our transit stations because that is one of the only safe, dry places they can find to call their own. People are making impossible choices between putting food on the table or keeping a roof over their head. 2 weeks ago, I spoke from Allen Gardens Food Bank, where volunteers are giving more of their time to help feed hungry neighbors than ever before. More people relied on Daily Bread locations last month than any time in the charity's history. 1 in 5 food bank users uses 100% of their income to pay for their rent. The root causes of the problem is the lack of safe, affordable, accessible homes, and a chronic lack of funding from provincial and federal governments isn't making the situation any better. We need money, we need political will, and as a city, we desperately need a mayor who knows what they're doing. And not in a hypothetical sense. There are solutions within our reach, and we need a mayor who will deliver them. As a councillor, I've done it. In just 6 months, I moved vulnerable residents who were living in Dufferin Grove Park inside to permanent homes. As chair of Planning and Housing, I secured billions in funding from the provincial and federal government, taking the affordable housing capital budget from $96 million to today a $4 billion. When everyone told me it couldn't be done, I showed up in Ottawa and I didn't take no for an answer. But we need to do more, a lot more. We need to urgently house residents experiencing homelessness and connect them with the supports that they need. I will invest to expand the Dufferin Grove model to be citywide. We need to protect those who are at risk of losing their homes and protect existing affordable and rental homes. I will also provide rental assistance to women and gender diverse people who are at risk of losing their homes as a result of gender-based violence. As mayor, I will hire 30 staff with a mandate to support renters and fight unjustified evictions in Toronto. And we also need to protect homes. That's why I will temporarily freeze new development applications that would demolish rental apartment buildings for reasons other than health and safety while undertaking a citywide review. As the city works to build 285,000 new homes in the next decade, I will set a target to guarantee that 20% of the new homes built, a minimum of 57,000 homes, are purpose-built rental. Nonprofit and co-op organizations play such an important role operating affordable housing, but face far too many barriers. I will invest $10 million to accelerate that work, to work on those pre-applications, to get them ready, to unlock the funding for them with the federal government. I will get City Hall moving and hold City Hall accountable. I will align city departments, streamline planning approvals, champion transformative planning regulations to build missing middle, and lead a mayor's campaign to incentivize densification. I will instruct city manager to publish semi-annual public updates on the progress on our housing commitments. I am sincerely pleased to hear the amount of attention being paid on housing this election. Addressing the housing crisis needs to be a top priority for anyone running for mayor. It has been my experience that too often people support building homes until it comes too close to them. That is why I am skeptical on the plan from Josh Matlow, with housing experts telling me it will cost 10 times more what is being suggested. And in 12 years on council, I have seen him finding many creative ways to stop building homes in our city, including citing the risk of a building reducing a sunlight despite being near a major subway station. There always be reasons to say no. But Toronto needs a mayor who will say yes. Yes to renters. Yes to homes for our youth. Yes to homes for our families. Yes to homes for seniors. And yes to homes for our working families. We need a mayor to say yes. And Mark Saunders, the Premier's preferred candidate, will tell you safety is the only issue our city faces. Well, let me tell you, the fact is, if you don't have a credible planning on housing, you don't have a credible plan on safety. You don't need Doug Ford as both our Premier and as our Mayor, backseat driving our city. And Olivia Chow is running as the NDP candidate. She's running against the province, against the federal. And on top of that, her entire housing plan depends on inaccurate revenue projections from the vacant home tax. So we need a mayor who can work with provincial and federal government and who will stand up and fight for our fair share. Anyone who tells you they can solve the city's budget challenges or addressing the housing crisis without other governments is not being honest with you. We need money to fix our services. We need to build housing and to make life more affordable. We are undoubtedly at a turning point. This cannot be our city's normal. There can never be a better future. As I'm thinking about this and as I'm thinking about housing and I think about the future, you know, I go back to when I came to this city and how my parents were able to bring us here shortly after they arrived. We rented for some time. We were able to live in the core of the city. And shortly after, they were able to buy a home. I don't know if we would be able to do that today. And that's why we need a mayor that looks for a brighter future and for that same sense of opportunity so that everybody born here, coming here, can feel that security of having a home and that sense of opportunity that can still live in the city. And as mayor, I will put people first. I will build homes and I will get City Hall moving to house the unhoused and to protect affordable homes and renters. I want to make sure that workers, like my parents, aren't pushed out. I want seniors to be able to continue to live in the neighborhoods that they called home their entire lives. They should be able to downsize, to have housing options, to live in those neighborhoods. And we should be able to live in the neighborhoods that we grew up. I had my sister looking for a home for 2 years, and she wasn't able to buy a home where we had lived most of our youth. That's not the city we want. That's not the city we need, and that's not the city that I will build. And I am the only candidate in this election who is up to the task, who has the solution, who has a proven track record to get it done. So thank you so much for being here today, and I'm now open to your questions.
Hey, Anna, good morning. As always, with anything the city wants to do, they're sort of always handcuffed or at the mercy of the province and the federal government. So with your plan here, how do you get the provincial government to kind of buy into what you're offering?
First of all, we need a mayor, as I said in my remarks, that is going to be able to work with the province and work with the feds. I have done it in the past, and I will continue to do that. We have a target mandated by the province to build 280,000 homes. I want to make sure that rental is part of that as well. And I have a mandate. I am running on also building these homes, as you can see by our plan. I am running on getting a better deal from the province as well. We've been talking about the Gardner and the DVP and how we need to make sure that we get a better deal. Listen, the reality is that the province, who was going to balance their budget in 3 years, is going to now budget it next year. Why? Because of all the HST that they've been getting actually from the city. We're all paying more for all these things. They're all getting extra revenue. We need to have some of that back to the city. And money is not only the only thing, is the relationship on the planning tools, is making sure that we have an aligned vision on how to deliver those 280,000 homes.
If you would, some of what is being presented today obviously is based on Bill 23 and what's required of the city. Some of it potentially could have been implemented while you were a councillor. So why bring it forth now, and why wasn't it done then?
The Dufferin Grove model was implemented. I was the councillor that actually put it together and is now being used, and I want to make sure that it goes citywide. I did it as a councillor. It works. We are able to house people. We are able to bring people inside when we have a housing first approach and we bring nonprofits together. And I want to make sure that that is expanded citywide. I also want to make sure that we make the province accountable to make the city whole, as they said, for Bill 23. There's an audit about to start. I am sure that very easily it will come through, that money is needed in order to build the 280,000 homes and to build the infrastructure that we need around the 280,000 homes that the province is mandating us to build.
Anna, hi. You referenced the fact that the city can't do a lot of what it needs to do without raising revenue. What are your plans around that, aside from asking for the province to fill the city's budget gaps? Would you raise taxes to pay for any of the programs you're talking about today?
So I'm not raising the property taxes above the rate of inflation. We do have an affordability issue in our city. We had a 7.7 property tax increase, and we need to deal with the affordability issues as well. And the provincial and federal government are getting millions and millions of dollars more of HST from the city. We need to make sure that a share of that comes to the city as well. We also need to be smarter on how we deliver some of these services, and not only do we deliver better services, but we tackle some of the budget issues. So, for example, half of the budget deficit that we have is because of the low ridership in the TTC. We need to attract that ridership back to the TTC. $200 million is because of our shelter costs. We know that today it costs us $6,000 to have somebody on a shelter bed versus $2,000 in a supportive housing. So how can we make sure, as my plan says, building more affordable housing, doubling the efforts on the modular housing? How do we focus on actually what is more humane and more fiscally responsible as well? Those are the solutions that we also need to bring to the table.
On another note, we're heading for a couple of years of traffic gridlock, I guess, downtown with all the construction going on. One of your opponents is proposing to remove bike lanes, scrap the King Street pilot project down there. What are your plans for easing congestion over the next couple of years?
We need to have a TTC that is safe and reliable, and making sure that all routes, streetcars, bus routes, subway, is safe and reliable, and people feel like they can use it. And they know that the streetcar is going to be running on time. It is essential to make sure that we deal with congestion. I will have more to say over the next few days on that topic, but I want to start by saying that the most important thing is to make sure that we have a safe and reliable TTC.
So, sorry, just so if I say you wouldn't favor removing the King Street Transit corridor?
The King Street streetcar is the most used streetcar route. It has thousands of transit riders that commute over that route, and we need to make sure that they continue to be that it continues to be a reliable route for people to get around.
Anna, you talked again about the province, kind of the things that need to be done, but how do you do it though? Because every candidate now is talking about the feds and the province need to give us money. John Tory talked about it for years, wasn't able to make it happen in large amount. So we know that it needs to be done, but how do you make that happen?
The all candidates have now started to talk about. I've started to talk about day one, because that's the reality. We are in a very difficult fiscal situation. We need a new fiscal framework. We are paying millions of dollars in HST, and the question is, who is going to be the candidate that is going to be standing up for the city and getting this deal? And to be honest with you, it's not going to be Josh Matler or Olivia Chow that is going to be the opposition, and it's not going to be Mark Saunders who's going to be agreeing and caving into everything that the Premier does. We need somebody that is actually going to be standing up for the city and bringing the issues like I have done from day one. Day one, I've been talking about this need, because whoever is telling you that they're going to have the solution with property taxes and they're going to have the solution just with cuts, they're not being honest with you. We would need 39% property tax increase to deal with this budget hole. So the question is, who is the candidate that has the track record of working with the other orders of government? Who is the candidate that is going to stand up, but at the same time bring solutions to the table? That candidate is me.
All right, that's Mayoral candidate Ana Bailao talking about housing downtown, some of the things she's expecting to do if elected as mayor, expanding the Dufferin Grove pilot project citywide, temporarily freezing new proposals that would eventually demolish rental apartments. She also wants to commit that 20% of new builds built by 2031, a minimum of 57,000 homes, are all purpose-built rental homes. Also touched very lightly on congestion in the city, talking specifically about Queen Street closures, which is our top story today. Didn't really give too much info on how she would alleviate that. Did mention the King Streetcar, the most used there. She also talked about property taxes in the city. If elected as mayor of Toronto, would not raise property taxes above inflation.